Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're cracking open the story of the Rudaj Organization.
Right, the Albanian-American group active in New York City.
Exactly. They really muscled their way in between about 93 and 2004.
Yeah, roughly that decade. Our info comes mainly from a single document, sort of laying out their history.
And our mission here is to really get under the skin of this group, how they started, their big moves, those clashes they had with the established families.
It gives you a real snapshot of the New York scene back then, doesn't it? Seeing how these dynamics played out.
Definitely. So what's fascinating, like right off the bat, is seeing this newer group challenge the old guard.
Absolutely. In a city with such a long history of organized crime, the document says they kicked things off in 1993 up in Westchester.
After some earlier activity in the Bronx, right? Early 90s.
Seems like it started there.
Yeah.
And the name Rudaj Organization
Comes from Alex Rudish, based in Yorktown, New York. The document calls him the alleged kingpin.
Yeah, and he had a few aliases. Sandra Rudovich, Ali Boy, Uncle Rudaj, X-High.
X-High, right. He was an ethnic Albanian from Montenegro. Came over in 87.
Which is pretty striking, isn't it? How quickly an immigrant could supposedly rise to that kind of position.
Yeah, that's a really good point. How does that happen so fast?
Well, maybe being outside those traditional Italian-American networks helped initially, gave them some space to operate.
Could be. But the document also points to a key partner, Nardino Colati.
Right, an Italian-American from the Bronx. And he had connections.
Yeah, he was a protege of that Gambino soldier, Phil Skinny Lo Scalzo. So it was purely an Albanian group.
No, definitely not. And they called themselves a corporation.
Which sounds very, I don't know, ambitious, business-like.
Suggests a certain self-image right from the get-go.
Now, there is these stories about Rudaj, almost legendary, like that alleged shooting in 96.
Oh yeah, the one in the Bronx. After a high-speed chase, targeting Guy Peduto, someone firing from the sunroof.
Pretty wild image. And then the Rouse incident.
Ugh, Rouse. The famous spot. Rudolph supposedly shows up with, 20 guys?
Trying to take John Gotti's table, or so the story goes.
But whether it's, totally accurate or maybe a bit exaggerated.
It builds a reputation, doesn't it? What does that tell you about his style?
Bold. Confrontational. Not afraid to challenge authority, even symbolic authority like Gotti's table at Rouse.
Maybe bordering on reckless?
Perhaps. But it projects power, fast. And that boldness ties right into their split from the Gambinos.
Okay, so Colati's connection to Lo Scalzo. That was their in initially.
Yeah, it seems Lo Scalzo promised them some territory in the Bronx, but then Lo Scalzo died.
And Joe Gambino took over his operations.
Right, and the source suggests that the promised territory didn't quite happen, plus maybe a clash of personalities, a lack of respect shown.
So Rudaj and Colati felt slighted, or maybe just didn't want to play second fiddle anymore.
Pretty much. They decided, okay, we're doing our own thing. That was in 1983.
A deliberate move. Let's form our own organization, not stay under someone else's wing.
Yeah, it takes some serious ambition to say we'll build our own empire.
And they put that ambition into action pretty quick. Where were they most active?
Queens, the Bronx, and Westchester County. Those were their main stomping grounds.
And the activities. Predictable stuff.
Pretty much the classics. Extortion, illegal gambling, robbery, murders mentioned too.
The document really seemed to zero in on the gambling, though. Like, that was a big moneymaker.
It definitely seems like a core part of their operation. Active in Queens, but also Mount Vernon and Port Chester.
Yeah, Edie Street in Port Chester, linked to Colati's crew.
Uh-huh. And then there's that incident with Salvatore Misael, the owner of Porta Roja in Mount Vernon.
Right, that sounds pretty brutal in the description.
Yeah, the source paints a stark picture. Colati's guys allegedly leaning on Misael hard.
They wanted keys to some Bronx cafe tied to illegal gambling machines.
Exactly, and when he wouldn't give them up, one of Rudaj's guys, Lamage, reportedly sliced his ear.
Oof, that sends a message.
A very clear, very violent message about who's in charge or who wants to be, using force to take control.
And inevitably, that kind of aggression starts stepping on other toes.
For sure. The document details clashes, starting with the Lucchese family.
Over gambling turf in Astoria, Queens.
Yep. And there's that specific incident, August 3rd, 2001, at a social club.
What happened there?
Rudaj and at least 6 of his guys allegedly went in and attacked some Greek associates of the Luccheses.
Attacked him how?
Beat one guy with a pistol, made threats. It was a very direct, very public challenge on Lucci's turf.
Wow. That's incredibly brazen. What's the strategy there? Just pure intimidation?
Could be. A calculated risk to establish dominance, or maybe just impulsive, not thinking long-term about poking a bear like the Lucchese family.
Hard to say.
Yeah.
And then there was the confrontation with the Gambinos.
Ah, the famous turnpike meeting. Arnold Squitieri for the Gambino.
Comes with like 20 guys. A small army.
Yeah, meets Rudaj, who only has 6 of his crew with him, at a rest stop on the New Jersey Turnpike.
And Scudieri basically tells him, stop expanding. Stay in your lane.
That was the demand. Clear message. Back off.
But Rudaj, he didn't back off, did he?
Not according to the document. He supposedly threatened to blow up the whole gas station, everyone included.
Seriously?
Yeah.
This is incredible audacity.
Yeah.
Especially outnumbered like that.
It apparently ended the meeting right there as Scudieri and his guys left.
So maybe that kind of, I don't know, fearlessness bordering on craziness.
Yeah.
Maybe that was key to them pushing back initially.
It certainly shows a willingness to escalate things dramatically, a belief in their own power, maybe, in that moment anyway.
The source also mentions, just briefly, issues with the Valenza's crime family.
Yeah, no real details provided there, but it just reinforces the picture, right? They were navigating this really complex, dangerous web of rival groups.
Making waves all over the place.
And ruffling a lot of feathers. But, you know, that kind of run doesn't last forever.
Right. The feds eventually stepped in. October 26, 2004.
Yep. The FBI and the Manhattan U.S. Attorney's Office moved in, arrested Rudaj and 21 others linked to the group.
And the document notes that most arrested were native Albanians or first-gen Albanian-Americans.
Really highlights that ethnic core of the organization.
There was a quote from Assistant U.S. Attorney Timothy Treanor.
Oh, yeah. During a bail hearing, he said the Albanian mob had basically taken over gambling from the Luccheses in Astoria.
So their aggressive tactics had worked, at least in grabbing turf.
Seems like it. They achieved some real gains, but ultimately the law caught up.
Over 20 members charged. The top guys, Rudaj included, got convicted.
And the sentences were serious. Rudaj himself got, what was it?
27 years. Federal prison. June 2006. For racketeering, extortion, gambling, the whole package.
And interestingly, Arnold Squitieri, the Gambino guy from that turnpike meeting.
He got convicted too, right? Separate case, though.
Yeah, unrelated case, but he got 7 years. So by 2006, as the source says, the key figures from that tense roadside showdown were off the streets.
It really puts a cap on that whole era.
When you zoom out, the Rudaj story, it really shows how dynamic organized crime can be. New groups pop up, they challenge the old guard.
They can even have some success taking over rackets for a while.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it also shows the power of law enforcement to eventually disrupt and dismantle these groups.
So bringing it all together, this deep dive really shows the Rudaj Organization, even with a relatively short run.
Made a big splash, a bold push into the New York scene.
Their ambition led them straight into conflict with the Italian-American families, often with just remarkable audacity.
Yeah, that's the word for it. But in the end, the federal hammer came down hard.
Looking back, it's interesting how their ethnic identity might have been both a strength.
Like a strong internal bond, maybe helped them fly under the radar at first.
Right, but also made them a distinct target as they got bigger and louder.
And their willingness to be confrontational, often violent, led by guys like Rudaj, that defined their rise.
And probably contributed to their fall, too.
Absolutely. It was a defining feature, start to finish.
So this look at the Rudaj Organization really gives you something to chew on. What allows new groups like this to even emerge and challenge established powers?
And what does this story tell you about how crime landscapes shift, especially in big cities? It's always evolving.
Ultimately, what's it reveal about that constant tension between, illicit power grabs and the forces trying to maintain order? Lots to think about there.
Definitely food for thought.
Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.